If you're planning your first trip to Ngala, Fraser Island, then this video may just help you, so stay tuned.
Ray's along for the trip again. Ray's my brother-in-law, and we've left Ray's home again and we're going back to Ngala. As you can see on the roof, we've got the flags up there, we've got the toilet and everything like that, recovery gear, all that sort of thing in there. We might go through that in a big list later on. Yeah, so keep on watching. Don't forget to like and follow. We'll do that later on. Alright, I can do that. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, wherever it is. Yeah, wherever it is.
Righto, so we're going to book in for the first night, which is at the Inskip Point. We're going to use the QPWS, and it's QPWS open link as the Queensland National Parks. So QPWS, type that in and then select a region. So we're going to select a region, the Fraser Coast. We're going to enter a park name, which is Inskip Point in Skip Peninsula Recreation Reserve. That's the one. We're staying one night there because we're catching the barge in the morning. Select access type. There we're going to go four-wheel drive. Yep. And accommodation type, we're in a tent. If you find the QPS website hard to handle, then you can always buy your permits at the Shell Servo in Rainbow Beach. Okay, so we can see how the tyre bulges out that little bit. By lowering the tyre pressure, it gives it a much broader spread across the sand, which means we're going to float across the sand rather than sinking into it. It's also a good idea to plan your trip around the tides. Now at low tide, the sand is quite hard, particularly down lower close to the water. You don't want to be driving through the water, that's not good for your car. But at high tide, or as the tide gets higher, you find you've got to drive further up the beach and that sand gets a little bit soft. And at very high tides, that water can come in an awful long way as well. And the driving on the really soft sand can be quite difficult, apart from using a heck of a lot more fuel. So yeah, drive on the lower tides.
This looks like a bit more flow and a bit of a lip on it.
Along this section where all those trees are is actually camping in behind. You'll see those tracks leading in, and that's where you can drive in and you can camp in behind the trees. That's one of the first of the camping zones along the whole beach here. There's, I think, 9 camping zones, and there's probably about 20 little camping areas. You must camp within those areas that are designated. For one, safety reasons, it might flood, or further up where the big dunes are, the dunes can collapse, so they won't let you camp around there. Okay, we're just going to go in through one of these camping areas just to show you what's in behind the dunes. So the entries are usually fairly soft, and this is where your low tyre pressure is really going to come in handy. So you can come into these and just goes in behind the dunes, stick to the tracks. You don't want to be chopping up the bush at all. You find every so often along one of these tracks will be a little area which will be great for a camp.
There's a nice little spot just there. It even comes with willy wagtail.
So we found ourselves an ideal campsite. Nice and level, nice clean sand, absolutely beautiful.
So we set up camp nice and early so Ray could end up going and having a bit of a fish in one of the gutters out in front of the camp. So Ray fished and I just sat and relaxed and watched the whales passing by just offshore. Have a look at this guy having a bit of a tail slap. So Ray heated up some pre-cooked meal that we'd prepared earlier. We settled in for the night. And then the next morning we packed up and headed north. Now, all along the eastern beaches there are sections where you can't drive on the beach. You've got to take the inland bypass tracks, especially around places like Indian Head, Champagne Pools, places like that. And you've got to take these inland tracks, which can get very soft, especially if the P-platers have been there and they always say, oh, I did all that in two-wheel drive. This only chews up the tracks and makes them softer and bumpier than is really necessary. So put them in four-wheel drive and make it easy. He's coming into the little shop at Orchard Beach and might stop and buy an ice cream.
Yum.
It's all about tire pressure.
Yeah. See that.
Here we are coming up on the infamous Ngala rocks. This is another section that we're going to have to take an inland bypass. But there's also a little track through the Coffee Rock that people will like to drive through. I suppose it can be a little bit challenging. It's not that bad actually. But at low tide, there's simply no need to drive around there anyway, because you can simply drive around it on the beach. But the next bit then is the bypass part, which is very, very soft and gets an awful lot of people stuck.
Obviously by the number of people watching. They stopped up here.
Yep, he's in.
He's bogged.
Yeah, no. We've already worked
He's right in the same spot too.
We let the gallery of experts give the guy some advice on how to use traction boards, etc. We simply asked him if we could go past him. He said yes. So we lowered the tyre pressure to around about 12 to 15 psi and away we went.
at the tip of Fraser Island, and we have a reception committee of birds waiting for us.
Yeah, this is as far north as you can go. And you can see the water rushing around the top
corner.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to go around a little bit further. There's a couple of camping areas around here somewhere. We'll find somewhere to camp tonight.
It's nice to know. That's a fair old sand dune. Vehicle prohibited on sand dunes. No drive on.
Good morning, everybody. It's day 4 of our trip, and we're up at campsite Kari in zone 9, which is right up the very tip of the island. Look at that view. How spectacular is that? It's just absolutely beautiful here. It's very remote, so yes, you've got to have all your own water, food, medical supplies. Make sure you've got all your pills if you need them, or whatever you need. You've got to have it here with you. There's no phone reception, so you can't call for help. It's just as it is. But a very nice place to visit, and the fish are on the bite too, so Ray's down there having a fish. Okay guys, I'm going to have a bit of a whinge here. Now, on Fraser Island they say there's no campfires, and that's for a very good reason. Now, about 2 years ago, half of Fraser Island was caught up in a massive big bushfire, which meant the evacuation of some areas, all sorts of things like that. And it's because somebody lit a campfire and didn't monitor it. So you've got to monitor your campfires. When you finish with the campfires, put it out with water. Just over there is the ocean. There's plenty of water there. It doesn't take much to get a bucket of water, pour it on the campfire and put it out. Not like this one that's just had sand kicked over it and just left to burn out. Now all around here the trees are just tinder dry, great for starting campfires but also starting bushfires. So please do the right thing. Don't have fires on Kari. There are 2 exceptions, one at Dundabara and I think the other one at Waddy Point, where they have fire rings, and that's to stop the fire spreading. But the one here in the campsite we pulled up in, there's just tinder dry grass all around it, just primed to start a huge bushfire and burn up all this beautiful forest. So yeah, please do the right thing. Don't get Kari shut down for the rest of us just because you want to have a simple little campfire and sit by the fire and sing Kumbaya or whatever. No, don't do it. It's just not worth it.
We camped here for the night, fished a bit, and then we headed back the next morning back down south.
So where are we heading to now? We're going to back to Orchid Beach. Then across the island to another one of the spots. Just climbing up the hill. Gonna film Col coming up the hill. But I gotta get up there first. You go that way. Thank you.
We did some inland tracks on the way back down, and some of the inland tracks are not used as much and are fairly easy to travel, but there are some sections that you may have to slow down for. So that's how you do Gari. Remember, the first thing you need to do is be prepared. Remember your camping permits, have some recovery tracks and a snatch strap at least. Lower your tyre pressures, around about 20 for most situations. Go down to 15 to 12 if you're doing the Ngala rock section. Check the tide times and avoid the high tides. Remember, you won't have phone reception except for just a few areas, and the ambulance can be a while away. So play it safe, follow the rules, including don't feed the dingoes.
Well, this is the sign at the watering point. Heading over to Gari, 4-wheel drive only. Give way to all wildlife. Do not bring plants, plant material or soil onto the island. And you need your camping permits, which we've already been through.
If you found this video interesting or informative or helpful in any way and you'd like to see more, remember to hit that subscribe button. Give it a like as well. And we'll see you in the next video.
You go that way. Thank you.
Puppy, Nanny Rose is going to go and drive through Nolan's. Bananas!